Welcome to the Week in Truth, number 13. Unlucky for some. Now, because of the recent Sean Atwood debacle, I've been saying to people, do you remember the People's Voice? Do you remember the People's Voice? But some of today's truthers are so young they don't remember the People's Voice, which makes me feel very old. So, having said that, the People's Voice was a internet TV channel set up by David Icke and some other people that went tits up in spectacular fashion. A number of people, including Richie and Sonia Poulton, were involved in this doomed enterprise. And I think it was at that point that I started to get really disillusioned by the truth movement and so on. But you can see that this thing's going tits up is a kind of thing that happens very regularly and routinely in the truth movement. And I think it's part of the whole intelligence agency template of how to do things. So they get all the activists following these various people, then it goes tits up, and then it sort of disintegrates and people start doing their own thing and following smaller people that are probably more honest. But and some people turn away from it. I know somebody who's basically said after the Sean thing, she's not going to do any more videos about that particular subject now. She's had enough, and she's completely upset and disillusioned and wants to turn herself towards the light. Well, I think that's probably what I did back in the day with the People's Voice. I concentrated on my children who were young at the time, and I just kind of stayed out of the way for a while. But now I'm back. I'm back to tell you how all this works. I've figured out how it works. So let's go and look at what Wikipedia says about the People's Voice. The People's Voice was a free global internet television and radio station which broadcast from the 25th of November 2013 until mid-2014. The station's main studio was in Wembley, London, with representatives in the US. It was created with a crowdsourcing campaign on the fundraising platform Indiegogo. Its main creator was David Icke. Presenters included Mark Windows, Richie Sonia Poulton, and Kenneth O'Keefe. Guests of the first show included Cynthia McKinney, Norman Finkelstein, Peter Tatchell, Jim Mars, Gerald Celente, Richard C. Hoagland, Vandana Shiva, Lauren Murray, and Leah Bolger. Poulton left in early January 2014 following a dispute concerning the transparency of the channel's finances. In March 2014, David Icke left TPV to concentrate on other work, having committed full-time to the station as an unpaid volunteer. That's in dispute since its launch in November 2013. From March 2014, due to financial difficulties, it is believed that the station operated with a skeleton crew and had effectively ceased production of live programmes, running repeats of previous programmes instead. Despite a brief revival of one of its principal programmes, The Richie Show, TPV ceased broadcasting completely in mid-2014 and became insolvent. In August 2014, it was announced via the official website that TPV would return in October of the same year, dubbed the People's Voice 2.0. However, the station was never revived and no further information was announced regarding its return. Now, you will see this pattern of things going tits up all over and over and over again. The aim of this constant having people donate money and then be heartbroken when it all goes wrong is because people then have that personal involvement and their money's in it and then it goes wrong. They are personally feeling hurt and disillusioned and they want to forget about the whole thing. So you're going to see this pattern repeated with things like, I think brand new tube's probably going to go tits up, and Sean Atwood's gone tits up. A number of other truthers over the years have gone tits up. Bill Maloney, of course, we now call him Baloney, and he's got no credibility at all. And I think Brian Rose with London Real is probably is destined for the same fate. Now, when I upload this, I will try and put some of the links underneath from these videos that I'm going to refer to. Now, somebody called Mr. Furling has put up the videos from when David Icke started to discuss Sonia Poulton and the People's Voice when it started to get a bit rocky. And why this went rocky was because the crowdfunding started out with £300,000 donated by the public, and they squandered it all in record time, and it looked really dodgy. Now, that bit in Wikipedia where it says that David Icke was only a volunteer isn't true. It seems like he was running the whole thing. There's loads of blogs online and stuff where they will say basically he had an office in the building. He wasn't living in the Isle of Wight where he supposedly lives full time. He was actually living in a house in Wembley that he was sharing with Richie Allen. And so he was much more involved in this than he will admit. So anyhow, what this video goes on about, and there's 3 parts of it, and he actually says at one point that they didn't set it up as a charity because then they would have been gagged as to what they could say. Now, there are laws about charities concerning when they get grants from the government and their funding comes from government, that they then have to not so much say positive things about the government, but they're expected not to say bad things about the government or government policies, which of course is unacceptable. It shouldn't be like that, but it is. However, they could have set up as a charity, not accepted any money from the government. I mean, heck, they didn't need to. They had this £300,000. They could have made that last a really long time with all the advances. I mean, 2013, 14 is not that long ago. They had computers and digital cameras, and they basically didn't need to buy a whole heap of stuff. And they could have probably done it all from out of a couple of rooms for not very much money at all. But they insisted on buying somewhere that was an absolute wreck and trying to do it all up, and they really got out of their depth. But I think really this was the plan from the beginning, because I believe they're all intelligence agency people, as you know. So they were all getting a salary anyway from GCHQ, and basically they've got this money that they conned the public out of with the aim of leaving everybody kind of gutted, brokenhearted and disillusioned. So they went through it all in record time. There's a blog here which is written by somebody called Mother Damnable that claims they were constantly having takeaways and alcohol and all sorts of things. Basically, the expenses were all for themselves. Now, David Icke blames this all on Sonia Poulton because Sonia Poulton apparently started asking questions about where all the money was going. Now, I don't have any time for Sonia Poulton either, because I think they're all in this together. And noticeably, Sonia Poulton hasn't kind of abandoned doing truth things. She obviously has been hanging around with Sean Atwood, doing a lot with Sean Atwood, until he recently has come out as something of a fraud as well. So, you know, Sonia Poulton seems to be an albatross, really. She's got the opposite of the Midas touch. Everything she touches turns to shit. So I don't know what to say about this. It was, at the time, everybody was so gutted, and it really exposed a side of David Icke that he wouldn't be challenged about where all the money had gone. He denied his involvement in running it and just said that he was a volunteer. And he said some really nasty things about Sonia Poulton as well. And at the time, his web forum on the David Icke website, the web forum was quite a thing. They just deleted anybody who posted anything regarding this. There were quite a few blogs out there. There's this one called The Needle, which is run by GoJam, and Brian Harvey has actually provided some evidence that these people like GoJam and whatnot were really actually Ian Puddick postings. We can't believe everything that it says. But the idea is just to create so much chaos and confusion that people don't know what to do or who to believe or who to follow. And so that renders people completely ineffectual. There's not going to be any revolution while people can't even make up their minds who's worth following. Let's see, there's one or two other bits here. Sonia Poulton's actual statement on her departure from the People's Voice. So she's continued stumbling from one wreck to another, which doesn't really lend her much credibility either. This chap called Bowler Hat Man has actually posted a couple of interesting videos on the subject of the People's Voice. This one's quite good. The People's Voice initiate panic mode. And he actually goes through the different accounts
the free audio
that were given out.
30-day trial.
So you can see there, they actually in the end did give out their accounts, but really it didn't sort of break anything down. But you can see direct wages, £75,000, website, travel, accommodation, hotels, food and catering. The worst thing about this was they tried to sting the public again. I had this telethon where they wanted to raise another £100,000 to keep the thing going. So this was just my little reminder of back in the day and the People's Voice. And I would think we're going to see the same thing again with London Real, because Brian Rose just looks like an absolute con man. So that's a short video, but for those of you who aren't as old as I am and can't remember the People's Voice,